بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum. On Ashura, Imam Hussain and his companions and children and brothers and nephews and cousins were martyred on the plains of Karbala. In the evening, the armies of Sham and Kufa stormed the camps of Imam al-Hussain, looted the tents and set them on fire, stole the veils of the women of the Ahlulbayt. And then that night, these women, along with Imam al-Hussein's ill son, Imam Sayyid al-Sajjad Ali Zain-ul-Abideen alayhi salam, slept under the open sky. Imam al-Hussain and his companions and everyone who was martyred in Karbala, their pain ended there. They ascended to heaven. Now the chapter of Karbala begins where the ladies and Imam Zain-ul-Abideen alayhim as-salam have to fight oppression. They've been thirsty and hungry for 3 days. In the morning of Ashura, they didn't have water, but they had their family. They had their companions. They had their friends. On the 11th of Muharram, they only have themselves. There is no water. There is no Ali Akbar alayhi salam. There is no Abbas alayhi salam. There is no Hussain alayhi salam. On the 11th and 12th of Muharram, we mourn the ladies of Karbala and Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, who were oppressed and tortured and disregarded for their position near Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the 11th of Muharram, after Ashura, the ladies of the Ahlulbayt and Sayyid al-Sajjad alayhim as-salam had spent the night after Ashura guarded by Imam Ali's ruh, his spirit, which had come from Najaf. They slept for 4 nights. Their difficulties began in the morning of the 11th. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam is said to have spent the whole night in prostration to God. On the morning of the 11th of Muharram, the Yazidi armies once again descended on the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They tied their hands together with ropes and linked their ropes together. There was a small problem here. Sakina salamullah alayha was too young and as such too short to be tied by her hands. Everyone was several feet taller than her. Instead of tying her by her hands, they tied her by the neck. Whenever the person in front or behind her would straighten up or stretch, she would be choked as a rope would be pulled upward. This is not even the extent of the torture they would have had to look at. The heads of the martyrs of Karbala were mounted on spears. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam's head was mounted on a spear and it would be reciting the Quran, still trying to get the message across to the Yazidi soldiers. I am Hussain, this is my family. You do not attack or torture the family of your Rasulullah, of your messenger from God. Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, whenever his head would be put on a spear, it would fall off because he couldn't even in death bear to see the women of the Ahlulbayt without their veils. Every time his head would fall off, Sajjad alayhi salam would be attacked and beaten by the soldiers of Yazid. Sajjad would cry out, "Oh, uncle, stop making your head fall from the spear. Abbas couldn't help it. He can't see the women of the Ahlulbayt without their veils." Eventually, they tied the head of Abbas alayhi salam around the neck of a war horse. That's not where the atrocities would end. The bodies of the martyrs were laid in a straight line, and it is said that the horsemen of the Yazidi army sharpened their horseshoes and prepared to trample all of them, one by one. The tribes pulled back the bodies of their respective martyrs. The tribe of Banu Asad said, "We will not allow Habib ibn Mazahir alayhi salam's body to be torn apart." Layla salamullah alayha's tribe said, "We will not allow the body of Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam to be torn apart." The tribe of Muslim bin Asaja alayhi salam said, "We will not allow his body to be trampled." One by one, they pulled out the bodies until only one body remained. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam lay on the plain of Karbala utterly alone. Horses charged over his body, his ribs broken, his legs were shattered, pieces of his body were thrown across the fields of Karbala. The ladies of the Ahlulbayt and Sajjad alayhi salam were forced to ride unsaddled camels and in some places walk for the 80-kilometer journey to Kufa. After the Yazidi army left with the Ahlulbayt as prisoners, some people from the nearby tribe of Bani Asad sent their bravest people to see if the army was gone. On the 2nd of Muharram, when Imam al-Hussain had arrived, he purchased the land around the Al-Qama, the Euphrates, where he knew that he would be martyred along with his companions and family. And he said to the tribe of Bani Asad, "Bani Asad, honorable people of Bani Asad, I am a homeless traveler. Please, oh men of Bani Asad, if you come out and see headless bodies on the fields of Karbala, please come and bury them. Oh honorable women of Bani Asad, if you come and see torn apart bodies on the plains of Karbala, please come bury them. Oh, innocent children of Bani Asad, if you see bodies on the plains of Karbala, while you play, make your way over to the bodies, and as you play, pick up fistfuls of sand and throw it on the bodies." The Bani Asad made good on their promise. They sent their bravest men on one of the 3 days past Ashura. When they arrived and saw the bodies strewn across the battlefield, they fell to their knees and wept at this great crime. They began to dig graves. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam's body, they pieced it together and placed it in a grave. Sheikh Mufid says that they buried Ali al-Asghar alayhi salam and Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam with Imam al-Hussain. They made graves for the other martyrs near the feet of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, a short distance away. And they made the grave of Abbas al-Amdar alayhi salam at the Euphrates where he fell, and that is where his shrine is today. The torture of Imam al-Hussein's body did not end with his body being trampled. It is said that after the Yazidi army left, battlefield scavengers arrived. One of them came to Imam al-Hussein's body and saw his ring, the ring that said, "La ilaha illallah, prepare to meet, there is no God but Allah." And then under it, it would say, "Prepare to meet Allah." The person tried to take the ring off his finger so he could steal it. The ring wouldn't come off. He took out his knife and cut off the finger of Imam al-Hussein and stole the ring. For the duration of the trip to Kufa, the Ahlulbayt's women and Imam al-Sajjad were mistreated, beaten, whipped. Sakina salamullah alayha would be whipped and slapped because she would be mourning her father. The Yazidi soldiers would not let them drink too much water. They would walk in front of them with water skins full of cold water and would overturn the water skin and spill it on the ground in front of the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is narrated that a soldier who was sympathetic to the Ahlulbayt, tried to smuggle a cup of water to them. As he passed by Umar bin Sa'd said, "What, is that some water you're carrying?" He said, "Yes." He took the cup from the soldier and put wine inside of it, and then emptied out the cup onto the ground. This is the length of torture that the Ahlulbayt had to endure. Finally, they made it to Kufa. They covered the 80-kilometer-long trip on foot and on saddleless camel. When they began to arrive in Kufa, Ibn Ziyad had already begun to spread the propaganda that on the plains of Karbala, they had won a great victory against a massive force of Khawarij, not against an oppressed, hungry, and thirsty caravan of 72 men of varying ages. It wasn't a caravan of 72 hungry and thirsty men that they had won against. It was a massive army of Khawarij in Ibn Ziyad's view. Allama Bakr Sharif al-Karashi says that a supporter of the Ahlul Bayt named Muslim, who was a plasterer, was plastering the doors of the palace. When he heard the cry of lamentation coming from the gate where the caravan had entered, he asked his servant, "Why are the people crying?" And he was told the Khawarij rebels had been taken prisoner and were being paraded through the streets. He asked, "Who is this rebel?" The servant replied, "It's Hussain ibn Ali alayhi salam." Muslim the plasterer let the servant go, and he slapped his face and chest so much he feared that his eyes would go blind. He washed the plaster off his hands and ran to the gate. There he saw Ali ibn al-Hussain Zain-ul-Abideen on a saddleless camel, his neck bleeding where the chain had cut away at the skin. And he was crying and reciting, "O evil nation, rain will not fall on your land. O people who did not have regard for our grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with respect to us. If the messenger of Allah gathers us on the day of resurrection, what justification would you offer? You carry us on saddleless camels as if we did not bring any religion among you." Another eyewitness named Jazlam ibn Bashir says, "I reached Kufa in 61 years after Hijri, at the time of the arrival of Ali ibn al-Hussain Zain-ul-Abideen from Karbala, accompanied with the ladies. The soldiers surrounded them and people come to watch the spectacle. They were riding camels without seats. The women of Kufa were wailing and lamenting. I saw Zain-ul-Abideen alayhi salam with a sickness that he was emaciated and he could barely speak. There's an iron collar and chain around his neck that cut away at it so it bled profusely. His hands were tied behind his neck. He was crying in a feeble voice. They are wailing and lamenting for us, but they are the ones who killed us." A Kufan lady stepped forward and asked the hostages, "What prisoners are you?" They replied, "We are the prisoners from the Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam." When the lady heard this, she started to scream and wail. All the other ladies of Kufa began to scream and wail. Their wails echoed across Kufa. They began to bring all the veils and cloths they could. They began to bring food and water to the children in the Ahlulbayt. Kulsum said from the back of the caravan, "Sadaqah is not lawful for us Ahlul Bayt." The children dropped the fruits and berries and water. The women dropped the veils. They said, "Our aunt, Kulsum says, Sadaqah is not lawful for us, the Ahlul Bayt. They are oppressed, they are hungry, they are thirsty, but they will not leave Islam. They will not do haram actions such as the length of the family of Rasulullah. They will never leave the righteous path." Bibi Zainab, salamullah alayha, when she entered Kufa, she was reciting a sermon. She said, "Praise be to Allah and divine blessings to my father Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and his good and exemplary descendants." She is still trying to make the people realize, we are the Ahlul Bayt, O people of Kufa, who are deceitful and treacherous. Why do you shed tears? May your tears never dry up and your loud lamentations never cease. You're like the woman who unravels to bits the thread that she has firmly spun. Your faith is nothing but deceit. Is there anyone among you that isn't a liar, or isn't proud, or is immodest, who isn't an adulterator, who is not an enemy? There are among you those who are as guileful as beautiful plant growing in the filth of silver on a grave. Certainly evil is that which your souls have sent before you. Allah is displeased with you, and in punishment shall you abide. Imam Zain-ul-Abideen, as he entered, introduced himself. I am Ali, son of Hussain, son of Ali, son of Abi Talib. I'm the son of the one who was slaughtered in the river Euphrates, even though he never asked for war. I'm the son of those honorable ladies of the Haram who have been disrespected, whose wealth and bounty has been plundered, whose children have been arrested. I'm the son of the one who was caught and killed, and this is enough for me to be proud of. O people, I administer you the oath of Allah. I am the Imam of your time. Do you know that you wrote a letter to my father, then betrayed him? You gave your word to him, extended your allegiance to him, then you left him and prepared to kill him, but you destroyed because of you who sent forth. Woe unto your mentality and ignorance. With which eyes we look at our grandfather, the messenger of Allah, when he says, you killed my household and you insulted my harem? You are not my community. Finally, they made it through the Darbar Kufa, where the people were throwing stones at the caravan, where they were throwing stones at the Ahlulbayt of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They made it to Ibn Ziyad's palace. When they entered, they saw a gruesome sight. They saw the head of their Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam being used as a plaything by Ibn Ziyad. He had a cane in his hand, and he would be hitting the head of Imam al-Hussain with the cane. A sympathizer of the Ahlulbayt stood up and said, Ibn Ziyad, why do you hit the head of the grandson of Rasulullah? You shouldn't do it, Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad said, I will kill you if you say anything. The sympathizer sat down. See the cowardness, see how the cowardice of the people of Kufa. Ibn Ziyad asked, who is this woman who sits in the corner with her women? When he said the name Zainab bint Ali, Imam Sajjad grew furious. How dare you say the name of the daughter of Fatima? I will tear you apart. Zainab salamullah alayha said, Sajjad, calm down. It is okay. Ibn Ziyad said, praise be to the God who disgraced you, killed you, and revealed the false nature of your claims. Bibi Zainab replied, praise be to God who has favored us with his prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May God bless him and his family. He has purified us completely from sin. He only disgraces the great sinners and reveals the false nature of their profligate. Such men are not among us, O Ibn Marjana. Bibi Zainab completely tore apart Ibn Ziyad's insults with the truth of her family. Ibn Ziyad asked, how do you consider God has treated your house? Bibi Zainab replied, I have not seen but good. God decreed death for them, and they went forward bravely to their resting places. God will gather you and us together. You will plead your excuses to him, and we will be your adversaries before him. May your mother mourn for you, O Ibn Marjana. See how brave Bibi Zainab is. She is hungry. She is thirsty. She is tired from walking 80 kilometers, but she will not give up her valor. She will keep fighting Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad, defeated, turned to Imam Sajjad alayhi salam and asked who he is. Imam Sajjad replied, Ali ibn Hussain. Ziyad replied, Ali ibn Hussain was killed in Karbala. Imam Sajjad replied, I had brothers named Ali ibn Hussain. Ali Akbar alayhi salam was hit with a spear. Ali al-Asghar was killed with a three-headed arrow. I am Ali ibn Hussain Zainul-Abideen. Ibn Ziyad said, it is Allah who killed them. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam replied, God receives souls at their time of death. A sentence from the Quran. God, he is saying God is not responsible for it. You are, son of Marjana. Ibn Ziyad flew into rage and ordered Sajjad alayhi salam to be executed. Lady Zainab salamullah alayha stepped in front of him and said, Ziyad, if you want to kill my nephew Ali Zain-ul-Abideen, you have to kill me first. If you kill me, you will not last on the day of judgment. You will be thrown into the deepest pit of hell. Ibn Ziyad stepped back and rescinded his order. They now traveled 1,000 miles out of Kufa to Sham. Imagine the trip. Their necks bound with chains, rough chains that cut into their skin and rubbed away at their flesh, their hands tied with rope. Sakina, salamullah alayha, being choked every time the rope would be pulled taut. They arrived in Sham. When Yazid Lanatullah alayh found out that they had arrived, Yazid jumped with joy in the garden of his palace and yelled, Allahu Akbar. Yazid has no right to say Allahu Akbar. He doesn't follow that which God has deemed to be halal and that which God has deemed to be haram. He is killing the very representatives of God on earth. He has no right to say Allahu Akbar. Shimr bin Ziljawshan and Mafir bin Thalab arrived a bit earlier in Damascus with the head of Imam al-Hussain. Yazid, when he saw the head, he used it just as Ibn Ziyad had, except this time the head had been cut. In Kufa, it was asked, is anybody here brave enough to cut the head of Imam al-Hussain with a knife? One lion stood up and attacked the head. Bakir Sharif al-Qarashi says that it was cut so much that bits of flesh were falling away. A sympathizer of the Ahlulbayt stood up and said, if you're going to take the head, give me the pieces that have fallen off. A soldier asked, why do you want them? He said, I want to bury them. Now the abused and cut head of Imam al-Hussain was in front of Yazid. Yazid started hitting it on the lips and the teeth with the cane while reciting a poem. A companion of Rasulullah named Abu Barza as-Salami said, why do you whip the mouth of Hussein? You are whipping the mouth. I've seen the Holy Prophet kiss. You are whipping the mouth of the grandson of the Holy Prophet, who was carried on the back of the Holy Prophet. What are you doing, Yazid? He stood up and left the palace. He left with many other companions and sympathizers of Rasulullah and the Ahlulbayt. Yazid was insulted, but he was still joyful. He was jumping up and down in his throne and smiling with glee at what he had done to the family of Rasulullah. Allama Qarashi says in his book, he, Yazid, said, son of al-Hussein, your father cut the bond of kinship with me and showed ignorance of my rights and tried to deprive me of my position of authority. Now God has treated him in the way you have seen. The lion child of Hussain alayhi salam, Imam Ali Zain-ul-Abideen, recited the words of God with absolute confidence and tranquility. No evil befalls on this earth nor in your own souls, but it is in a book before we bring it into existence, and surely that is easy to Allah, so that you may not grieve for what has escaped you, nor be exultant at what He has given you, and Allah does not love an arrogant boaster. Yazid got infuriated and his joy was destroyed. At that moment, Sajjad alayhi salam recited the following verse of the Quran. In whatever affliction befalls you, it is on account of what your hands have wrought, and yet He pardons most of your faults. Imam Sajjad said, it is about those who have committed oppression, not regarding those who are oppressed. Imam Sajjad then turned away and ignored Yazid. He considered Yazid to be worthless and lowly, not worth speaking to. Yazid is not worth anything in the eyes of the Ahlulbayt. He can oppress them as much as he wants. He can torture them, whip them. He will always be ignored. Yazid still remained overjoyed and cried out, "Oh, my ancestors who died in Badr fighting Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I wish you were alive to see how I have avenged your death." Yazid, who claims to be a Muslim, whose ancestors fought against the person who spread Islam, who is now going to this very same idol worshippers and saying, "I wish you were alive to see how I have killed and tortured the family of Rasulullah." Yazid is no Muslim. He is as if he had come right out of the area of the period of Jahiliyyah. He is no Muslim. The lady Zainab then said, "Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, and the blessings on Muhammad and all the members of his family. Allah told the truth that the end of those who did bad deeds is bad because they denied the verses of Allah and mocked them." Yazid, you are proud and arrogant because you think you possess a huge army that filled up deserts and lands, and you think you gained a victory, but that victory is temporary. Your position is nothing in front of Allah. Our position is so high you cannot even see us in front of Allah. Bibi Zainab made multiple points against Yazid in her sermon. She chastised Yazid for being proud and arrogant. She condemned Yazid for having imprisoned and tortured the honorable ladies of the Ahlulbayt and ignoring their relationship with Rasulullah. She attacked his very inherited nature. He is a son of Abu Sufyan, the first enemy of Islam. He is a son of Muawiyah, who was the enemy of Imam Ali and who would kill Muslims in the streets. He is evil by nature. You have shed the blood of the purified progeny of Rasulullah because your grandfather Abu Sufyan did so and your father Muawiyah did so. Zainab salamullah alayha did not stop there. She criticized Yazid's poem of where he asked his ancestors from Badr to be there. She also said those very ancestors will always remain in hell. She continued to say that everyone who worked with Yazid to do this to the family of Rasulullah is just as bad as Yazid. Umar bin Sa'ad, Ubaidullah bin Ziyad, Shimr bin Ziljoshan, they are all going to be thrown into hell. She pointed out, "I am Zainab, daughter of Fatima, daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I have a lofty status in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are nothing before me. You are not even equal to the dirt beneath my feet, and you act as if you have so much power on this earth. You are nothing." She continued to say, "Yazid, you can try to wipe out the remembrance of the Ahlulbayt, but you will not succeed because Bibi Fatima wished for a nation that will always remember the martyrdom of her Imam al-Hussain. The Shias of Ali are that nation. The remembrance of the Ahlulbayt will never be wiped out. They are in the hearts of every Shia." Then Yazid, after hearing the whole sermon, he sat in his throne bewildered. Yazid, in an intoxicated state, as if he had been drinking the whole day before, tried to say a sentence of poetry that was not related to anything Zainab salamullah alayha had said. It made Yazid look even more false and dumb. The people in the palace began to roar and weep when they heard the sermon of Zainab salamullah alayha. They called for Yazid's trial and persecution. Yazid spat out a few verses of the Quran and false information to try and make them stop. While Zainab salamullah alayha was saying her sermon, Yazid saw the effect it had on the people and told his muazzin begin doing the adhan. He then got a speaker to go onto the pulpit. All of this to drown out the voice of Zainab. But Zainab, salamullah alayha, whose voice was so powerful, could be heard over whatever Yazid did to block it off. The speaker on the pulpit started to insult and criticize the Ahlulbayt. Sajjad alayhi salam pushed him off the pulpit, stood up, and said, I am Sajjad, I am the son of the one who was martyred on the shores of the Euphrates. I am Sajjad, I am the son of that one man whose body was torn apart under the hooves of the horses. I am Sajjad from that family whose women are being tortured, whipped, and imprisoned. He kept saying everything that had happened along to them. The people of Sham couldn't take anymore. They started to weep. Yazid called his muazzins, do the azan again, drown out the voice of the lion son of Imam al-Hussein. It was too late. Sajjad alayhi salam's speech had moved people. His sermon had moved people. They no longer viewed Yazid as a rightful ruler. These people had been raised on the hatred of the Ahlulbayt when they heard what Sajjad alayhi salam had told them. They saw Yazid is not the rightful ruler. He's a backstabber, an illegitimate dictator. Yazid is not a Muslim at all. Yazid imprisoned them in Syria. A Syrian man came during the sermons and asked Yazid, give me Sakina salamullah alayha as a slave. Zainab salamullah alayha chastised the Syrian man. It is not your choice to make. She pointed at Yazid. It is not his choice to make. Then she insulted Yazid, saying, you have no power, O evil dictator. They did not remain in Syria long. They stayed imprisoned in Damascus. One night, on the cold floors of the prison, Bibi Sakina salamullah alayha was asleep. She had stopped crying. When people saw her, she was quiet and in thought. This night, she woke up screaming and crying. When Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam asked and Bibi Zainab asked, what happened, dear Sakina? She said, I saw my father. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, he said, oh Sakina, do not worry, you will be with me soon. The whole prison erupted in weeping. Yazid then ordered the head of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam to be given to them. It arrived in a box. When Sakina opened it, she saw the head of Imam al-Hussain and asked, whose head is this? The head of Imam al-Hussain had been so disfigured from being cut and hit that she couldn't recognize it. When she was told it's the head of your father, Imam al-Hussain, Sakina hugged it and wept until she went silent. Sajjad alayhi salam touched her forehead and checked her breathing and said, our Sakina is gone. They dug a small grave in the prison and buried Sakina salamullah alayha. When the people heard that Sakina, the 4-year-old daughter of Imam al-Hussein, was martyred in the prison, they began to rebel. Yazid had no power anymore. They began to rebel. Yazid tried to grow as popular as he could. He freed the Ahlulbayt as a last resort. When they were released, Yazid tried to console them by giving them expensive gifts. Kulthum, when she saw it, cried out, why are you doing this? Who do you think you are? You killed our family and now you try to give us expensive gifts to cover it up. We are the Ahlulbayt. Material possessions mean nothing to us. When they were asked what they wanted before leaving Medina, Sajjad alayhi salam said, give us the face of Father Hussein alayhi salam. Give us the veils and the looted items of the ladies of the Ahlul Bayt. Give us the heads of the martyrs. They got everything back. Each lady of the Ahlul Bayt went to her child or nephew and grabbed the head. Bibi Zainab went to the head of Imam al-Hussein and hugged it. The heads of Anu Muhammad lay untouched. When Bibi Zainab was asked whose heads are these, she said, "Oh, those are my sons, but I must hug my brother Hussein." Zainab salamullah alayha told Yazid, "Give us a house in which we can mourn Hussein alayhi salam and the martyrs of Karbala." Yazid, being in no position to say no, seceded and had a house cleared. The Ahlulbayt then set up majalis. Bibi Zainab set up a majalis for Imam al-Hussein and mourned for 7 days with the people of Syria and Sham. They returned to Medina. They began their return trip to Medina. It is said that the son of Imam Zain-ul-Abideen, the future fifth Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, who was very young at the time, asked, "Father Sajjad, why are we leaving Sakina? Sakina, your family returns to Medina. Assalamu ala Zainab bint Ali. Assalamu ala Ali Zain-ul-Abideen s.a.w ibn Hussain. Assalamu ala Asiran Karbala. Assalamu ala Sakina bint Hussain alayha salam. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un."